बाणू जरा बंद कर. Hi, very good morning. I'm Dr. Janak Patel. I'm MD physician. I'm not an endocrinologist, neither I am a cardiologist. Whatever knowledge I've gathered, I'm sharing with you. Today we'll be discussing on one of the very interesting topic which you will see lot of patient in your everyday practice. We call as a congestive heart failure. Old terminology for right ventricular failure was right heart failure, or we used to say congestive cardiac failure. But nowadays the word utilized for combination of left ventricular plus right ventricular failure is called congestive heart failure. Even CCF does mean cough cold fever. No, CCF in cardiology is right ventricular failure. So congestive heart failure or heart failure, now congestive cardiac failure word is totally gone. Either you use the word heart failure or you call congestive heart failure. If you look at this particular picture, if you look from here, this looks like an old woman. This is a nose, this is a chin, this is lips, these are the hairs. So it is old if you look at that. And if you look at this particular part, this is a chin, these are eyes, these are ear, and these are the hairs. So she is young. So this is the way how you look at it. If you look this particular from here, these are the eyes and these are the two ear pinna of rabbit. And if you look from here, this is eye and these are the two beaks of duck. Same way this. If you look this is one person talking with another person. And if you look like this, it looks like a glass. It is called Rubin vase. So how you look at it? Now there is a lot of shift in congestive cardiac failure. We'll be talking in detail regarding definition, etiology, pathophysiology, classification, clinical features, investigation, differential diagnosis, and treatment part. But in today's lecture, I'll be talking on introductory part of congestive cardiac failure. In next lecture, we'll be talking on approach to congestive heart failure. So what is a heart failure? It is a clinical syndrome. It is commonly described as a clinical syndrome. So heart failure is a common complex clinical condition where heart is unable to maintain the adequate blood circulation. Simple most way. We use two common words, congestive heart failure. We use another word, cor pulmonale. We use the word right ventricular failure. We use the word left ventricular failure, etc. So we'll be going through all those terminology. So congestive heart failure frequently is applied to a diagnosis of heart failure where it is due to accumulation of fluid in the lung because of left ventricular failure, we call pulmonary edema, and in peripheral extremities, congestion of organs, etc. That is because of right ventricular failure. So when you come across that, left ventricular failure will not produce edema of extremities. It is secondary due to right ventricular failure and elevation of pressure in superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. But when both are combined together, left ventricular failure ends into right ventricular failure, and then we call that as congestive heart failure. But pure right ventricular failure, if you take it for granted, that will elevate the pressure in superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, and that will give rise to congestion of viscera, except lung, where you don't get pulmonary edema. Lungs are clear. That is right ventricular failure, where you get JVP elevated, hepatomegaly, splenomegaly, ascites, lower limb edema, puffiness of face, etc. Cor pulmonale is one of the variety of right ventricular failure, where you get the right ventricular enlargement, means RVH, right ventricular hypertrophy with or without failure. Secondary due to primary pulmonary disease. We'll be talking separately in detail regarding a cor pulmonale chapter separately. So right ventricular failure is a failure of a right ventricle to eject the blood adequately into pulmonary circulation. And secondary due to this, person gets congestion of organ like hepatomegaly, splenomegaly, hydrothorax, hydropericardium, JVP elevated, ascites, edema of lower limb, puffiness of face, and oliguria. So we use the word right ventricular failure, or we call congestive cardiac failure. Now this congestive cardiac failure word is almost gone. Some people describe as a syndrome, and depending upon what type of pathophysiology you call, congestive cardiac failure is a syndrome due to systolic or diastolic dysfunction when the right ventricle is unable to pump adequate cardiac output or unable to do a normal filling pressures. This is described as a right ventricular failure or congestive cardiac failure. While left ventricular failure, it is a failure on the part of a LV to eject the blood into systemic circulation, that is aorta, resulting into fall of blood pressure, that is we call hypotension or shock stage, and inability to make the oxygen supply to peripheral tissue, and because of back pressure there is an acute pulmonary edema, or we call pulmonary congestion, that we call as a left ventricular failure. And left ventricular failure finally will end into right ventricular failure, and when it ends into right ventricular failure we call that as congestive heart failure. So it is inability to meet the demand of body. So there are a lot of different ways of defining. It is a complex syndromes, can be because of structural or functional cardiac disorders that impairs the ability to ventricle to fill. When ventricle fails to fill and eject the blood, we call diastolic failure, where your ejection fraction is maintained above 50. So you call that as a diastolic heart failure, or it is also called as a heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. Preserved means it is equal to or more than 50. While systolic heart failure is inability to eject the blood, and where heart failure is with reduced ejection fraction, that is equal to or less than 40. So there are three words they utilized. One they call as systolic or reserved ejection fraction less than 40. Diastolic heart failure, where you get preserved ejection fraction which is equal to or more than 50, and you have to exclude all the other non-cardiac condition which results into similar clinical symptoms and signs. So that should be excluded. Now the person between 40 and 50, they are called as a group which belongs to what we call as a reduced ejection fraction but minimal reduced ejection fraction, or marginal reduced ejection fraction, that is between 40 to 49. There is another word which is being described is pulmonary edema. Now this also we will be talking separately, one full lecture on pulmonary edema. So it is a condition which is characterized by fluid accumulation in lung, meaning there is an extravasation of fluid in pulmonary vasculature in and around alveoli, inside the alveoli and around the alveoli. That we call as a pulmonary edema. We will be talking in detail. And you can divide into two big groups, cardiogenic and non-cardiogenic. And there are many more conditions. Here there are a lot of different terms which are being utilized. Congestive heart failure, non-cardiac circulatory failure, systolic heart failure, diastolic heart failure, right-sided heart failure, left-sided heart failure, acute heart failure, acute decompensated heart failure, etc. These are all the terms which are being utilized. Some of those terms will be utilizing as we come across in the next slides. This is called advanced heart failure, where your clinical symptoms and signs are severe enough, then we call that as an advanced heart failure, where usually it is according to NYHA classification, class 3 and class 4, or according to ACC, we call as C and D groups. There is fluid retention in lung, we call pulmonary congestion or pulmonary edema. There is a reduced cardiac output leading to peripheral hypoperfusion. Left ventricular ejection fraction less than 30. The pulmonary capillary wedge pressure more than 16. Right atrial pressure more than 12 on catheterization. And you have got a high level of BNP or N-terminal pro-BNP is elevated in absence of non-cardiac causes. So these are some of the criteria. And person inability to do any exercise, 6-minute walking test will be less than 300 meter. History of first heart failure hospitalization in more than one in past 6 months. All presence of all previous preacher despite of attempt to optimize the therapy, including diuretic and standard treatment, unless these are poorly tolerated and contraindicated. And now you require CRT. So that GDMT is guide directed medical therapy, guideline directed medical therapy, and CRT is synchronized, that is synchronized cardiac CRT cardiac resynchronization therapy. You resynchronize the function of atrium and ventricle. So atrium will contract followed by a ventricular contraction by a pacemaker, that you call as a CRT. Now we classify congestive heart failure into many different ways. One we call as a forward failure and backward failure. I'll explain simultaneously. Forward failure means when the ventricle fails to pump the blood forward, say RV into pulmonary artery and LV into aorta, you call that as a forward failure. And because of increased pressure in the ventricle, when there is a backward failure or there is a backward push of a blood from RV into RA and into superior and inferior vena cava, we call that as a backward failure. And in lung, there is an increased pressure in LA, which results into increased pressure in pulmonary capillary wedge pressure and pulmonary edema, that we call as a backward failure. We already explained right ventricular failure and left heart failure. When right ventricle fails, you get increased pressure in superior vena cava and inferior vena cava and RA, and there is decreased blood ejected into pulmonary artery, resulting into decreased blood coming into LV, and that will produce hypotension. But lung does not have pulmonary edema, that is pure right ventricular failure. While in a left-sided failure, we already explained that there is no forward ejection, decreased ejection, which produces hypotension and shock states. And because of back pressure, you got pulmonary edema, that we call as a left-sided heart failure. And when both are combined together, left heart failure followed by a right heart failure, we call as a biventricular failure or we use the word congestive heart failure. If onset is very short, we call acute congestive heart failure or acute heart failure. And when it is lasting for a very long period, then we call it the chronic heart failure. There is one word utilized is flash pulmonary edema. That is, you get a pulmonary edema due to sudden appearance of increased pulmonary pressure, pulmonary capillary pressure. There is another term utilized is low output and high output failure, meaning whenever there is a failure, there is a decreased output. So all this failure are because of decreased cardiac output. But there is a condition where there is an increased blood volume. Because of increased blood volume, there is an increase in stroke volume. Now, because of a heart failure, the stroke volume will reduce, but still the output is good. But compared to the amount of left ventricular and diastolic pressure and diastolic volume, the output is less. These are some of the groups where you call that as a high output failure. Classical example, anemia, thyrotoxicosis during pregnancy, beriberi, all this condition where your blood volume is high, and compared to that blood volume, the cardiac output is relatively less, but total output in spite of failure is still maintained, and that we call as a high output failure. Nowadays we forget all this terminology. Usually we use commonest terminology is right ventricular failure, left ventricular failure, combination of both, biventricular or we call congestive heart failure, acute and chronic. Flash pulmonary edema is not very commonly being utilized, but now we utilize the word systolic and diastolic failure. When cardiac output is maintained, meaning ejection fraction is maintained. If it is more than 50 or equal to 50, but there is a filling of ventricle is poor, we call that as a diastolic failure. While in systolic failure, the ejection fraction is less than or equal to 40, equal to 40 or less than 40. Then we call that as a systolic failure. Well, filling is good, but ejection fraction is low. So that particular we call as a systolic because the ventricle cannot eject. So that is systolic pressure, systolic failure. Now normally we divide NYHA classification into 1 to 4, and in ACC classification we divide ABCD. We'll be showing you in one chart and we'll be comparing the two. Depending upon the ejection fraction, we divide into what we call as a reserved ejection fraction or reduced ejection fraction, which we usually label as a systolic failure, where ejection fraction is less than 40, while if it is preserved, meaning if ejection fraction is more than 50 or equal to 50, we call that as a preserved or we call diastolic heart failure. And between the two, if the ejection fraction is between 40 to 49, it is called mid-range or mild reduction in ejection fraction. So it is M, small m r. Here R means reduce, here mid-range, and this is P for preserve. Depending upon the clinical symptoms and signs and ejection fraction, it is called compensated, decompensated, and refractory. Decompensated means already the person has developed a full-blown signs of congestive heart failure. Compensated means the cardiac output is still being maintained, ejection fraction is still being maintained, but person starts getting symptoms and signs on exertion or on some precipitating factor. That we call as a compensated, where still ejection fraction is maintained. As soon as there is any stress, any tachyarrhythmias, bradyarrhythmias, the person ejection fraction will be reduced. Then we call that as a decompensated. Refractory word is utilized when the person is on treatment and in spite of diuretics and standard treatment, guideline directed medical therapy, GDMT. In spite of that treatment, still person is not improving. Then we call that as a refractory. Commonest cause of refractory congestive heart failure is because of precipitating factor which are not being treated, increased salt intake, NaCID, or grade wise it is quite severe enough where your pharmacotherapy may not be useful like grade 3 and 4. NYHA classification wide grade 3 and 4 may not give a good response. Then we call that as a refractory. So depending on the cardiac output, low output, high output, depend upon the ejection fraction, preserved ejection fraction, reduced ejection fraction, and what we call as mid-range ejection fraction. Anatomical wise, forward, backward, right side, left side, biventricular congestive heart failure at grading wise, NYHA grading or ACC grading, ABCD, and on duration or onset, acute and chronic. When it is first time presentation, we common word utilize is new onset of congestive heart failure, which can be acute or rapid onset. Acute or we call rapid onset. When it is for a short period, we call transient, and when it comes again, we call recurrent. Or another word instead of transient is called episodic. And when it persists for a longer period, then the word commonly utilized is chronic. And that chronic can be utilized into two conditions: compensated, decompensated, or we call stable, and decompensated. These are the words which are being utilized. This I have already explained you that preserved ejection fraction we call diastolic. When left ventricular and diastolic volume is normal and ejection fraction is more than 60, we call as a normal heart. When left ventricular diastolic volume is normal, but if it is reduced and along with that, if ejection fraction is less than 60, we call as a diastolic heart failure. Usually we say that equal to or more than 50. And when left ventricular end diastolic volume is more than normal because there is dilatation of left ventricle, here the end diastolic volume is reduced, and if ejection fraction becomes less than or equal to 40, then we call as reduced ejection fraction or we call systolic heart failure. So those are the terminology. Now previously they used to use a word, a borderline word for ejection fraction between 41 to 49. Now that is replaced by what we call as MR. This P borderline is replaced by MR. So if reduced ejection fraction is less than 40, we call as a systolic. More than 50, diastolic, preserved ejection fraction. And when it is between 41 to 49, we call as borderline. And if from 40 it improves more than, it is called preserved ejection fraction but improved word was utilized. Now this two is replaced by mid-range. Between 41 to 49 it is called as a mid-range, small m and r. This is small m and r. So there are symptoms and signs. In preserved, symptoms and signs are also present, but ejection fraction more than 50, and this is very common in diastolic variety where the ventricular volume is less, muscle mass is more, while here there is a dilatation of the ventricle the ventricular volume is more. So that is three words: preserved ejection fraction, mid-range ejection fraction, and reduced ejection fraction. So these are the three words commonly utilized. Nowadays they will use all these words only. Related to blood pressure, if there is an acute heart failure, by and large all person will have a fall of blood pressure. But in good number of people, the blood pressure is still being maintained. Means systolic blood pressure, if it is remaining more than 140, we call as a hypertensive acute heart failure. So person is already having a failure, but still blood pressure, systolic blood pressure is more than 140. But if systolic blood pressure is less than 140, it is called normotensive or hypotensive depending upon the blood pressure. If it is less than 90, it is hypotensive acute heart failure. If it is between 90 to 140 systolic, we call it a normotensive heart failure. And if the blood pressure systolic is more than 140, we call it an acute heart failure, but hypertensive acute heart failure. So these are the three words: hypertensive, normotensive, hypotensive, and you add, as far as onset is concerned, acute heart failure. There is one another terminology which they utilized. This is pathophysiological and clinical picture combined together. If person lungs are dry, skin is warm, we call normal. If lungs are dry, skin is cold, clammy, meaning person is having severe hypotension. Usually you will come across this in less than 5% of people. It is called dry and cold. If lungs are flooded with water, that is pulmonary edema is there, and peripheral circulation is still maintained, it is 50 to 60%, it is called wet and warm. If person is having a pulmonary edema and he is in a shock stage, then it is called wet and cold, which is accounting for 20%. And this helps further for the treatment, because in this particular condition what you will require is increase your blood pressure like vasodilator, etc. While in a person with a cold clammy extremities because of hypotension, if it is hypovolumic, you will require IV fluids with vasopressors, etc. Now, this is the best classification which is being there, which usually utilized on identification of congestive heart failure, and then you put according to ACC classification or NYHA classification. The most commonly utilized is NYHA classification, but ideally if you use ACC classification, it helps you a lot to detect these two groups, where you can give a very good treatment, because asymptomatic persons are neglected and they are not being investigated thoroughly. So according to, first I'll explain you NYHA classification. According to NYHA classification, grade 1 is absolutely asymptomatic. Now here the person do not have any symptoms like dyspnea, edema of feet, JVP elevated, distension of abdomen, etc. So this group very frequently is neglected. But at that stage, if you look in ACC, already there is it is stage 2, or we call it a stage B, where you got a structural changes in heart, but there is no heart failure. Means ejection fraction is still being preserved. While before that, there is one stage we call as a stage A, where person is at a risk of heart failure, but without structural heart disease or symptoms. Meaning, say a person, hypertensive person, diabetic person, person with say hyperlipidemia, obesity, metabolic syndrome, all this group of people, they are in group A. So if you pick up them in group A, you prevent them to go into stage B, and according to NYHA classification, grade 1. If you prevent that, you will prevent heart failure. So this is very, very important. If you detect this particular group, we call it a high risk group people. So person who are at a very high risk of developing a structural heart disease and has got a chance of developing a failure, you pick them up, treat them, you can prevent structural changes. If you prevent the structural changes in the myocardium, you can prevent a heart failure. So this is very, very important. Now as you go to stage 2 and 3, stage 2, symptoms with moderate exertion and symptoms with minimal exertion, which is equivalent to stage C of ACC, which will include both minimal exertion and moderate exertion. So this particular group, you will need a treatment and they are symptomatic. So person has already developed a structural heart disease and now they are symptomatic, where with minimal exertion or with moderate exertion, the symptoms are present. But when you come to a grade 4 in NYHA, that is orthopnea, where already the person may become a refractory heart failure, means in spite of a good treatment, we call it a GDMT, guideline directed medical therapy, still person is not improving because the ejection fraction is so much reduced that person will require a specialized intervention like CRT, ICD, or may require LVAD or heart transplant. That is the importance of these two classification. So do remember ACC is better because if you pick up in stage A, you prevent B, C, D. While here, you don't pick up here, directly you detect them in stage 2 and 3. Stage 2, 3 and 4. By that time, already he is in stage C according to ACC heart failure stages. So do remember this too. So always utilize NYHA as well as ACC together. But ACC will be better than NYHA classification. This is clinical. This is clinical. This is clinical plus investigations. And you pick up in stage A. Same, this is class 1, no symptoms on moderate exercise, minimal exercise, at rest. This is orthopnea. This will be paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea. And this will be in between those two. And this will be asymptomatic. This is NYHA classification. So same thing what we have told you, that you have to pick up at this stage high risk group. Don't pick up in asymptomatic groups. Pick up at this. If you pick up at this, well and good. We also call this particular group as compensated, and then it becomes a symptomatic, which is C according to ACC and 3 and 2 according to NYHA, and refractory according to ACC, but NYHA wise orthopnea. So this is the way you try to proceed. Etiology wise, left ventricular failure will end into right ventricular failure, and that will be congestive heart failure. But pure right ventricular failure is characteristic in a cor pulmonale, which can be acute and chronic, where left ventricular function is preserved. Right ventricular failure can also occur apart from cor pulmonale in ischemic heart disease, where there is purely right ventricular infarct or inferior wall infarct, or person is having pulmonary hypertension secondary due to mitral stenosis, mitral regurgitation, or because of pulmonary stenosis. Very rarely because of chronic aortic stenosis or chronic aortic regurgitation, not acute. Tricuspid stenosis, tricuspid regurgitation, pulmonary stenosis can end up with right ventricular failure. Eiser-Menger complex, or we call reversal of the shunt in ASD, VSD, PDA, it will end into right ventricular failure rather than left ventricular failure. In tetralogy of Fallot, where it is right to left shunt also will end up with right ventricular failure. If there is a myocarditis which is involving right ventricle more, then person can have a right ventricular failure. And in a cardiomyopathy also, like dilated cardiomyopathy by and large involves left ventricle, it will end up with left ventricular failure. But if it is involving more of right ventricle, it can be there. And even in a restrictive cardiomyopathy, you will have more of right ventricular failure rather than left ventricular failure. Yes, there are some conditions which will produce similar symptoms and signs like right ventricular failure, like pericardial tamponade, constrictive pericarditis, massive pericardial effusion. So these are some of the conditions which can produce pure right ventricular failure. But classical example is cor pulmonale, or as far as pulmonary hypertension is concerned, we call as a class 3. In that particular variety, you will get a cor pulmonale, which can be acute or which can be chronic. Also, you can come across in a chronic pulmonary thromboembolism. Chronic pulmonary thromboembolism. So in that condition also, you will come across pure right ventricular failure. And these are the different causes of cor pulmonale we'll be discussing in detail in cor pulmonale group and also in case of a pulmonary hypertension. But in general, if we talk about left ventricular failure more, the 40 to 50% of the time, some people say even 70% of the time, it is ischemic heart disease. 10% of people with hypertension, 10 to 15% with idiopathy. If you combine this, almost it becomes close to 95. So if you take this together all, 70 plus 20, almost close to 95. So the commonest cause of left ventricular failure is ischemic heart disease, hypertension and idiopathy. Valvular heart disease, mainly ARAS and MR, that will produce left ventricular failure, which will be accounting for 10 to 15%. So if you look here, idiopathic, ischemic heart disease, valvular heart disease and hypertension will account for almost 95 or more than 95%. Congenital heart disease, dilated cardiomyopathy is another very common cause as far as the left ventricular failure, and that is accounting for nearly 30%. And one of the cause of dilated cardiomyopathy can be congenital and ischemic heart disease. That comes topmost on the list. We call it an ischemic dilated cardiomyopathy. So these are some of the common cause which can produce more of left ventricular failure rather than right ventricular failure. Right ventricular failure will be secondary due to left ventricular failure. So you can divide into ischemic heart disease, valvular heart disease, cardiomyopathy, myocarditis, hypertension and cardiac arrhythmias, circulatory failure. This will become precipitating factors, and a decompensation on pre-existing. These are all precipitating factors like septicemia, thyrotoxicosis, anemia, hyperpyrexia, pulmonary embolism, then volume overload, lack of adherence to the treatment, acute severe infection like pneumonia, lobar pneumonia, ARDS, cerebrovascular insult, major surgery, then renal failure, bronchial asthma attack, acute exacerbation of COPD, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, etc. There are a lot of many will be coming across. Out of which some will produce acute, they are notorious and they will produce acute congestive heart failure like acute myocardial infarction. Pulmonary, massive pulmonary embolism will end up with what we call as right ventricular failure. Hypertensive crisis, particularly hypertensive emergency, that is sudden shoot up of blood pressure, will produce more of LVF. Infective endocarditis will produce acute MR and acute AR, and they will end up with acute left ventricular failure. Ventricular septal defect will produce more of we call as a right ventricular failure rather than a left ventricular failure. Cardiac arrhythmias, sudden severe tachyarrhythmias, left ventricular failure. Thyrotoxicosis also, acute thyroid crisis can produce left ventricular failure, rupture of papillary muscle secondary due to infective endocarditis or because of acute MI will produce left ventricular failure. So those are the causes for acute left ventricular failure. Now this is a small chart which is combining together all the three. We call it the acute congestive heart failure, acute MI, infective endocarditis, severe tachyarrhythmias, massive pulmonary embolism, following a surgery, dissecting aneurysm, acute rheumatic fever, myocarditis, etc. These are some of the causes of acute, while chronic will be ischemic heart disease, hypertension, valvular heart disease, dilated cardiomyopathy, arrhythmias, drug toxicity, right ventricular failure, cor pulmonale, etc. While in both this condition, acute or chronic, you will have precipitation of failure. So we call precipitating failure means compensated will become decompensated because of anemia, thyrotoxicosis, arrhythmias, tachyarrhythmias, particularly atrial flutter fibrillation, pregnancy, respiratory infection, acute exacerbation of COPD, bronchial asthma, status asthmaticus, pulmonary embolism, severe hypoxia, anxiety, fluid overload, NSAID, excessive salt intake, sudden shoot up of blood pressure, etc. So remember, these are the acute causes, these are the precipitating causes for acute, these are the precipitating causes for chronic. Very simple way to go through. Now all the other slides at your leisure time you can go. We say systolic is very commonly because of ischemic heart disease, hypertension, dilated cardiomyopathy, myocarditis. This comes topmost on the list. While diastolic failure is very frequently because of hypertension with LV atrophy, means chronic hypertension, restrictive and hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, fibrosis, amyloidosis, sarcoidosis, constrictive pericarditis, hemochromatosis, some of the valvular heart disease, etc. They will produce more of diastolic failure. So do remember that particular part. And we already told you in systolic, the left ventricular and diastolic volume is more than normal, but ejection fraction is less than 40. While in case of a diastolic and diastolic volume is markedly reduced and ejection fraction is preserved, means less than 60 but more than or equal to 50. So that we call as a diastolic dysfunction or diastolic failure. Either we use systolic dysfunction and systolic failure, or we call diastolic dysfunction and diastolic failure. And both can be combined together sometimes. You can come across some of the condition like ischemic heart disease or hypertension. These are all the precipitating factors we already mentioned, that obesity, high salt intake, smoking, alcohol, cardiac ischemia, tachyarrhythmias, respiratory infection, pulmonary embolism, severe exercise, mental stress, volume overload, pregnancy, thyrotoxicosis, all those conditions. At your leisure, sorry, at your leisure time, you can go through. These are all the different risk factors or precipitating factor we call hypertension, diabetes, smoking, obesity, high fat diet, low physical activity, or even sudden severe activity. They all become family history of hypertension, strong family history, obesity, old age, alcohol intake, diabetes, smoking, inactive lifestyle, sleep disorders like OSA, etc. And these are all the risk factors we already mentioned. At your leisure time, you can go through. Now, little bit regarding a pathophysiology. You can see here the blood from RA comes to RV, goes to pulmonary circulation, lungs oxygenate via pulmonary vein, comes to LA, LV, and then to aorta. This is normal. Now what is happening? There are a lot of things which are happening. Lot of things. There is an increased sympathetic activity. There is ADH secretions. There is a pulmonary venous congestions. What is happening? There is a lot of neurohormonal mechanisms. There is RAS system activation. neurohormonal system activation, RAS system activation, etc. Now we will going through one after other. Say first I am talking about right ventricular failure. What is happening in a pure right ventricular failure? Now right ventricular failure fails to eject the blood, means output is decreased to pulmonary artery. So as it is less to pulmonary artery, less blood goes to lung. But lung is normal, so if lung is abnormal, oxygenation will be poor. But say we take it for granted, oxygenation is good, so that oxygenated blood, but reduced quantity will come to LA, and that reduced quantity will be ejected into LV, and from LV into aorta. So in aorta, the ejection is less. So person will always have hypotension, fall of blood pressure, and whatever blood comes into aorta is oxygenated. It is not deoxy blood. So this will be what will happen at initial stage. Now let us go to little bit in detail. So because the RV cannot eject the blood into pulmonary artery, as the output in pulmonary artery is less, we have already explained, less blood comes to LA. As less blood comes to LA, less blood is ejected from LV. LV function is normal, so ejection fraction will be preserved. LV ejection fraction will be preserved. But the blood coming to LV is less. Now because of this, in aorta there is a decreased cardiac output. Because there is a decreased cardiac output, hypotension. And because of hypotension, the kidney will have a poor perfusion. So RAS system will be activated. And because of the activation of the RAS system, it will try to elevate your blood pressure. We'll be talking about that further. And it may produce oliguria. And if it persists for a longer period, you can develop even AKI. As far as CNS is concerned, decrease blood supply to brain. Person will have a altered level of consciousness if it persists for a longer period. Irrelevant behavior. As far as the cardiovascular system is concerned, because of a decreased blood supply to coronary artery, you can develop ischemic heart disease, and if it is very severe enough, you can have even acute MI, and it can precipitate decompensated congestive heart failure from compensated stage into decompensated stage. As far as respiratory system is concerned, the person will now start complaining of, because of hypoxia, person will start complaining of shortness of breath, we call dyspnea. And there is a decreased oxygen supply to muscles, person will be fatigued, but still skin will be warm because there is blood supply to skin and metabolism is taking place. So inner lung, decreased output, fully oxygenated. So that fully oxygenated blood, but the quantity of blood is less, and that is going to LA. Less blood is going to LA. This is, we call as a forward failure. What happens as far as a backward failure is concerned? In a backward failure, because RV pressure is elevated, because RV is not able to eject, so end diastolic volume in RV will increase. RV pressure will be elevated. So now RA pressure will be also elevated because there is a preload on RA, and because there is now RA pressure elevation, so pressure in the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava is elevated. Because of elevation of the pressure in superior vena cava, you start developing puffiness, raised intracranial pressure because there is an increased accumulation of CSF, decreased drainage of CSF from superior sagittal sinus, lower limb will show you edema, you will have a collection of fluid in a pleural cavity, pericardium, hydrothorax, hydropericardium, there will be edema over the neck, JVP will be elevated. So this will be because of superior vena cava. Even you will have a edema in upper limb in late stages. While because of inferior vena cava, hepatomegaly, hepatojugular reflux will be positive, splenomegaly, portal hypertension, ascites, edema of lower limb. Kidney will also have oliguria, and because of the persistence in a chronic congestive heart failure, you will have a persistent hepatomegaly, liver congestion, ischemia, necrosis, replaced by fibrosis. Now this is secondary due to heart disease, so it is called cardiac cirrhosis. So this will happen because of a back pressure, so it is called backward failure. Understood well? So this is what will happen in a pure right ventricular failure. See here, there is nothing has happened to left ventricular function, but at the same time there is no pulmonary edema. That is the characteristic in a congestive cardiac failure. In a congestive cardiac failure, you will have no pulmonary edema. Now we go to what we call as a left ventricular failure. In a left ventricular failure, RV output is normal. Normal blood goes to pulmonary artery. But there is an increased pulmonary venous pressure because of left ventricular failure. Hence there is a pulmonary edema and there is a pulmonary hypertension. And secondary to that, now right ventricle will start showing you changes. We'll be showing you further. So because of a left ventricular failure, there is a decreased output into aorta, but there is a LV and diastolic volume is increased. LV pressure is increased. Because there is a LV pressure increase, there is increase in LA pressure, and that will give rise to pulmonary edema. We'll be showing you that in the next slide. So this is what is going to happen in a forward failure. Now, because of decreased output into aorta, hypotension, it can end up with AKI much faster than right ventricular failure. Severe decrease in blood supply to the brain can end up with what we call convulsions, and even person can be comatose. Decreased perfusion of the coronary artery, acute MI or ischemic pain or precipitation from compensated to decompensated stage. In respiratory system, person will start complaining of orthopnea. We'll explain you pulmonary edema and orthopnea. Person will have a marked decrease in blood supply that will produce fatigue, skin because of severe hypotension and shock stage, cold clammy skin, and person will develop peripheral cyanosis because of this. But because of increase in left ventricular pressure, LA pressure is elevated. Because of LA pressure elevation, pulmonary venous pressure is elevated. Pulmonary capillary pressure is elevated. Wedge pressure we call pulmonary capillary wedge pressure is elevated, and you will start developing what we call as pulmonary edema. And because of pulmonary edema, there is an accumulation of fluid in the alveoli, which will give rise to typical symptom we call as orthopnea. Because person is so much breathless that he cannot lie down, because when he lies down the pulmonary edema increases, and that's why he acquires an orthopnic posture, and fluid is collected, and there is also little amount of RBC in that fluid. So because of fluid accumulation in alveoli, person gets orthopnea with cough, and in cough he brings out blood stained frothy sputum, which is a characteristics of acute pulmonary edema. Now, because of accumulation of fluid in an alveoli, oxygen cannot dissolve in water and it cannot oxygenate RBC, hemoglobin. So there is a poor oxygenation of hemoglobin which is present in RBC. So person will have a more of deoxyhemoglobin in pulmonary circulation, and that will result into increased concentration of deoxyhemoglobin, which will produce central cyanosis. So you will have a central cyanosis because of pulmonary edema, and you will have a peripheral cyanosis because of the hypotension and shock we call as a poor circulation. So combination of central with peripheral, we call that as a mixed cyanosis, that is a characteristic in a left ventricular failure. So you have got a cold clammy extremity with periphery showing a cyanosis as well as lips, tongue, soft palate, pharynx, ear lobules, nasal tip, all those will show you cyanosis. And extremities are cold clammy. So that suggests peripheral with central cyanosis. That is mixed cyanosis. Now because of hypoxia, now pulmonary artery undergoes vasoconstriction, pulmonary hypertension, right ventricular pressure elevation, and now it will end up with congestive cardiac failure. And this combination, left ventricular failure with right ventricular failure, now we call as congestive heart failure, and that is the outcome. So this will be the two. This is because of forward, and this is because of increased pressure in a pulmonary vein. This is a backward pressure. So this is called as backward failure. This is called forward failure in left ventricular failure. So left ventricular failure, left atrial pressure elevation, pulmonary wedge pressure, pulmonary arterial pressure, pulmonary hypertension, right ventricular pressure elevation, RA pressure elevation, and congestive cardiac. So now LVF is with right ventricular failure, or we call as a congestive cardiac failure. Together we call as a congestive heart failure. So combination becomes congestive heart failure. There are two other words utilized. One we call as a preload. Preload means amount of volume of blood coming to that chamber. So if that preload is more, then you will have a dilatation more. And if afterload means where the ventricle is supposed to eject, say aorta for LV and pulmonary artery for RV, if there is an increased resistance in that vessel, the afterload is increased, then it will end up with hypertrophy. So if there is an increase in afterload, hypertrophy. If there is an increase in the preload, dilatation. Now this is in short we call as hormonal changes. Because of decreased cardiac output, there is renal ischemia which will result in renin secretion. Renin will stimulate RAS system. I don't go into detail. We already discussed before in endocrinology also, RAS system activation, and because of RAS system activation, angiotensin 2, that angiotensin 2 will produce peripheral vasoconstriction and try to increase your blood pressure. As well as angiotensin 2 has also caught renal vasoconstriction, where further reduction in a renal perfusion, renin is released, angiotensin 2 level will further increase, aldosterone secretions, and aldosterone will act on a distal convoluted tubule, retain sodium and water, and because it retains sodium and water, blood volume is increased and it will help in increasing the blood pressure. As well as we have already told you, angiotensin 2 will be also producing vasoconstriction, and because of vasoconstriction, increase in afterload, and because of increase in afterload, the person will have an elevation of blood pressure. So that will be the effect of RAS system. Because of ADH secretion, there is an increase in circulatory volume because the fluid is retained, water is retained in a distal convoluted tubule and collecting system, and that will increase the preload, and by increasing in the preload, it will be increasing the perfusion and cardiac output. And also there is an activation of sympathetic nervous system which will produce increased contractility by releasing catecholamines, increases the heart rate, and also produces vasoconstriction, by which it tries to increase your preload. It also increases the afterload, and it increases the cardiac oxygen demand, and that can be dangerous one. So there is always a compensation, but some of the compensation may be worsening the myocardial function. So these are the three systems which are being activated: sympathetic system, RAS system, and ADH secretions from posterior pituitary. These are the symptoms which develops during congestive heart failure, that is shortness of breath, cough, particularly bronchospasm with fluid in the alveoli. This will be a characteristic symptoms in a left ventricular failure. Peripheral edema, which is a characteristic of a right ventricular failure. Tiredness and fatigue in both because of decreased blood supply, decreased oxygen supply. Lack of appetite, nausea, vomiting, again because of congestion, that is more commonly the symptoms because of the congestive heart failure, or we call as right ventricular failure. Lack of blood supply to brain will produce confusion, lack of thinking, lack of concentration, etc. And tachycardia, increase in the heart rate, is because of the sympathetic system overactivation, that is compensatory mechanism. And this is what we call as structural heart disease or a chronic heart failure, which may be because of hypertension, ACS, cardiac arrhythmias, infection, renal dysfunction, non-adherence to the treatment, etc. can precipitate, and that will have a different effects on myocardium, renal function, vascular, neurohormonal mechanism. In neurohormonal, we already mentioned RAS system activation, sympathetic system activation, as well as ADH secretions, that is neurohormonal mechanism. While as far as the vascular system is concerned, there is a vasoconstriction, endothelial dysfunctions, increased arterial stiffness, altered contractility of myocardium, then volume redistribution takes place because of either peripheral vasodilatation or peripheral vasoconstriction. You can have a capillary leakage. As far as the renal is concerned, there is a sodium and water retention. ADS secretion will produce water retention, and aldosterone will produce sodium and water retention. And because of decreased perfusion to the kidney, kidney can end up with AKI. And on a kidney, because of decreased perfusion, RAS system is activated. And as far as the myocardium is concerned, decreased cardiac output, diastolic dysfunction, myocardial injury, MR, ventricular pathophysiology, tachycardia, all this can also precipitate further, and you can have a decompensation depending upon what is compensating. This is right ventricular failure, this is left ventricular failure. There is a compensatory mechanism which is taking place. We already told you RAS system activation. This is RAS system activation, this is sympathetic system activation, and this is effect of compensatory mechanism by means of a myocardial contractility is increased, workload is increased, and there is a stretching, and that will try to compensate by hypertrophy or dilatation. But if these two systems are activated more, you will end up with congestive heart failure. Same thing explained at your leisure time. You can go through this. There are a lot of different outflow charts and which shows you the mechanism of heart failure. This is again that what happens because of a fall of blood pressure at the kidney, what happens over the sympathetic tone. This is sympathetic system activation, this is RAS system activation, etc. And this is action, what is happening because of RAS system activation, and this is secondary due to what we call as a retention of sodium and water. All those is explained in simple. This is what we say that in stage C and D, it is decompensated stage, while in this is compensated stage. And here, it is at a high risk. So person with hypertension, atherosclerosis, diabetes mellitus, obesity, metabolic syndromes, etc. are at very, very high risk. Or person who are using cardiotoxins, genetics, strong family history, or certain infections can also produce damage to the myocardium. And once there is a damage to the myocardium, there is decreased contractility, there is a remodeling which is taking place. So there is a myocardial necrosis replaced by fibrous tissue, and there is a remodeling, and hence there is a ventricular dysfunction which takes place. and you should pick up in this stage rather than picking up at this stage. This will persist for days to years, but once a person starts developing a myocardial damage, within months to year, 1 year, 2 year, the person will go from stage B to stage C. And once he goes into stage C, from here till the end of the life is a very short. It is 10 to 15 years. So this is what we call as symptomatic heart failure but end stage heart failure, where you require a support, artificial support from outside apart from drug therapy. So do think it over, because here neurohormonal system, sympathetic system, all those are working to compensate. But if it doesn't compensate, the person will be symptomatic and he will go from stage C to stage D. So don't allow him to go from stage A to stage B. Try to detect in stage A. That is most important. We have already told you, in a heart failure, decrease cardiac output, increase left ventricular filling pressure, increase volume, increase atrial filling pressure. So stretching of the atrium, there is a release of natriuretic peptides, that is ANP, BNP. That will produce vasodilatation, natriuresis, increased diuresis, decreases the renin release, decreases LV remodeling, etc. So this is a protective phenomena which is happening. While RAS system activation increase renin production, angiotensin 2 production, which will have effect on angiotensin 2 receptor, which will produce vasodilatation, natriuresis, and fall in blood pressure, while vasoconstriction will have further increase in aldosterone secretions and sodium and water retention and elevation of blood pressure and worsening. And aldosterone will also produce damage to the myocardium by activating endothelial dysfunction and also accelerating atherosclerosis. So there are three systems, that is sympathetic nervous system, RAS system, and natriuretic peptide. This is protective, while these two will produce damage to the myocardium and worsening of the congestive heart failure. There are four natriuretic peptide: brain, BNP, which is secreted mainly from ventricle; atrial, small quantity secreted from atrium; C peptide or C type natriuretic peptide mainly from blood vessels, which we are not much interested with. It is still in a further research part. D natriuretic peptide, also called the dendroaspis natriuretic peptide, which is also secreted from ventricle. So from atrium only one, ANP, BNP from ventricle, CNP from peripheral blood vessels, and DNP is partly from atrium. So those two are not of much use, but BNP is of a very much of use, which is a protective. So BNP level will be elevated in congestive heart failure, in myocardial infarction, myocardial ischemia, right side failure, cor pulmonale also it will be elevated, acute pulmonary embolism also it will be elevated, in ACS also it is elevated, in atrial flutter fibrillation also it is elevated, LV dysfunction also it may be elevated, RV dysfunction also it is elevated, obesity sometime it is elevated, but how, exact mechanism not known, but probably because of a little amount of dysfunction, and in near future it may be helpful to find out the early dysfunctions. Flash pulmonary edema also it is elevated, very early part of pulmonary edema. Even in AKI it is abnormal, but you have to pay attention. If a person is having AKI, then value of BNP will change to confirm the diagnosis of congestive heart failure. So you have to pay attention if the person is having AKI. Now, a person with normal symptoms, normal exercise, normal LV function, but high risk group, this is what we call as stage A for ACC. Asymptomatic, which is stage 1 in NYHA, but stage B in case of ACC, where no symptoms but LV dysfunction. LV function is abnormal. Then we come across what we call as a compensated stage. No symptoms, decreased exercise tolerance, abnormal LV functions, and this will be still what we call as stage B and C in case of ACC, while stage 2 and 3 in case of NYHA classification. While decompensated stage means there are gross symptoms and signs, markedly decreased exercise tolerance, and abnormal LV functions, which will be stage 2 and 3 in case of NYHA, and stage C in case of ACC, and refractory stage D in ACC and stage 4 in NYHA. So if you see risk factors, endothelial dysfunction, atherosclerosis, coronary artery disease, myocardial ischemia, you should pick up at this stage. And further, once there is a coronary thrombosis, myocardial infarction, arrhythmias, loss of muscle, and there is a remodeling, this will be what you will coming across B and C stage in ACC and stage 2 and 3 in case of NYHA classification. And then further changes after remodeling, ventricular dilatation, congestive heart failure, and person goes into end stage heart failure, that is stage D and stage 4 in NYHA and stage D in ACC. Now we come to clinical features. As far as the clinical features is concerned, clinical feature will change in RVF, clinical feature will change in acute pulmonary edema, and combination of RVF with LVF will be in a congestive heart failure. We'll be talking separately in a cor pulmonale, a separate chapter. So usually we say pure right ventricular failure, acute left ventricular failure, then acute left ventricular failure will, if persist longer and severe, will produce right ventricular failure simultaneously, then we call that as a congestive heart failure. Now depending on the onset, we call acute cardiogenic pulmonary edema, that is acute left ventricular failure. And if the blood pressure is so low that it produces a shock stage, then we call it a cardiogenic shock. So that is acute left ventricular severe decompensated left ventricular failure, and that is given a name acute decompensated LVF or acute decompensated congestive heart failure. And if a chronic heart failure gets acute onset, so that is called acute decompensation of chronic heart failure. So this is acute on chronic heart failure. So depending upon the onset, we call acute and chronic, and LVF will be further divided into cardiogenic pulmonary edema, cardiogenic shock, and acute decompensation on a chronic heart failure. So that will be that particular way. We are talking about a right-sided heart failure, very classical. These are the typical what will take place in a person with a cor pulmonale, which is a characteristics. Person will complain of fatigue, peripheral edema, increased peripheral venous pressure, ascites, hepatomegaly, splenomegaly, and it is always secondary due to chronic pulmonary disease, increased JVP because of stomach congestion, anorexia, nausea, decreased appetite, there is a retention of fluid, so there is a weight gain, and peripheral edema. This is typical in a right ventricular failure. So you can see here peripheral edema, increased JVP, and edema. You can see pitting edema, ascites, nutmeg liver, it is called nutmeg liver. So hepatomegaly. So you got a JVP elevated, Kussmaul signs, jugular venous pressure is increased with respiration, hepatojugular reflux will be positive, If we apply a pressure in a right hypochondrium, JVP will be elevated. Person can have a hydrothorax, hydropericardium, congestive hepatomegaly, congestive splenomegaly, ascites, peripheral edema. We call generalized anasarca, characteristic of a right side failure. And because of decreased blood supply to brain, confusion, dizziness. In case of left ventricular failure, if it is pulmonary edema, then only you get those symptoms and signs. Because of decreased blood supply to kidney, oliguria. And because of fluid retention, there is increase in weight. These are the four characteristic signs: JVP elevated, edema, hepatomegaly, ascites, and HJR reflex. 5 signs, or we call abdominal jugular reflex or hepatojugular reflex. These are characteristics of right ventricular failure. See here, we have not mentioned anything regarding lung findings. Lung is dry. So JVP elevated, ascites, peripheral edema. You can see external jugular vein prominent. This is external jugular vein. There is a fullness. This is called JVP elevation. If there is a fullness, we call jugular venous pressure, pitting edema, and along with that hepatojugular reflux positive. We'll call that as classical signs. Classical signs. Pitting edema. As far as auscultation is concerned, S3 gallop on right side. So you will get a S3 sound. You might have a cardiomegaly, but that will be more commonly seen in a left ventricle rather than right ventricle. Right ventricle will have a mild right ventricular enlargement. RV heave. P2 will be loud, and you will have a MR and TR. This will be common. In a case of a left-sided failure, we'll come across pulmonary findings. That is, you will have a pulmonary congestions finding like cough, PND, orthopnea, tachypnea, basal crackles, frothy, blood-stained frothy sputum. Very, very characteristics. Very, very characteristics. And because of decreased cardiac output, tachycardia, fatigue, dizziness, oliguria, anginal pain, restless, orthopnic postures, etc. Very, very characteristic. Classical orthopnic posture. This is PND. Person has to get up in the night for dyspnea. We have already discussed all this in a dyspnea chapter. So you can go through that dyspnea chapter. So left-sided failure, we'll have a peculiar sign we have already discussed. Because of pulmonary congestion, cough, basal cracks, crackles, wheeze, blood-stained frothy sputum, tachypnea, and typical orthopnic posture. Because of lack of blood supply to brain, confusion, restless, tachycardia, exertional dyspnea, PND, fatigue, peripheral as well as central cyanosis, cold clammy extremities, elevated pulmonary capillary wedge pressure, which you can find out on a left heart catheterization, PND. These are all the typical finding in a left heart failure. We have already mentioned exertional dyspnea, orthopnea, PND. Dyspnea at rest is called orthopnea. And because of acute pulmonary edema, cough, blood-stained frothy sputum, wheezing, chest pain, palpitation, fatigue is because of lack of blood supply to the muscles, anorexia, nausea, vomiting, cerebral symptoms, cardiac cachexia, systolic blood pressure is reduced, pulse pressure is reduced, diaphoresis, peripheral cyanosis, cold clammy extremities, central cyanosis, basal crackles, wheezing sounds. This is the difference between diastolic and systolic. I've already discussed before. At your leisure time, you can go through. These are the difference between diastolic and systolic. Hypertension will be more common in diastolic rather than systolic. Ischemic heart disease will be more common in systolic rather than diastolic. Most important part is in systolic, LV cavity will be more. So LV will be dilated. and ejection fraction will be less than 40. So do remember, while diastolic is more common in a younger individual with severe hypertension, preserved ejection fraction. Preserved ejection fraction. This is again a difference between systolic and diastolic, and this is showing you history, physical examination, what is the X-ray picture, what is the ECG, what is a echocardiogram, etc. A major difference between the two. At your leisure time, with ease you can go through. These are the combined picture in LVF with right ventricular failure, shortness of breath, edema. Means you will have a combined picture of right ventricular failure signs and left ventricular failure signs. Ascites, cough with frottis sputum, increased urination, confusion, difficulty in sleep, insomnia, orthopnea, chronic fatigue, etc. Orthopnea, dyspnea, paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea, fatigue, fluid retention, those all symptoms can be there. You can divide into subjective symptoms, objective symptoms, subjective manifestation, objective findings, etc. All those whatever we have mentioned, these are in LV dysfunction. This is in RV dysfunction. This is means in favor of right ventricular failure. This is in favor of left ventricular failure. And when both symptom signs are together, we call as a congestive heart failure. This is pure in left ventricular failure. These are pure in right ventricular failure. When both are together, we call it a congestive heart failure. At your leisure time, you can go through. Again, same. This is in left ventricular failure. This is in right ventricular failure. Slide showing you. Again, same. Left ventricular failure, right ventricular failure. This is combined picture of a heart failure, or we call as a congestive heart failure. These are all the symptoms: dyspnea, orthopnea, crackles, basal crackles, wheeze, decreased blood pressure, nausea, vomiting, ascites, pitting edema, anxiety, failing of oxygen saturation, confusion, JVP elevated. You can have an infarcts, fatigue, S3 gallop, tachycardia, hepatosplenomegaly, decreased urine output, low volume pulse, cold clammy extremities, combination of LVF and CHF. These are the symptoms which are most common. Dyspnea and edema comes topmost on the list. Then comes cough, orthopnea in congestive heart failure. These are symptoms in acute. These are symptoms in chronic. In chronic, there is a gradual decompensation. So the symptoms are less and slowly. But in acute, there will be sudden deterioration. So this will be acute symptoms. This will be in a chronic heart failure. These are predominantly volume overload. These are related to hypoperfusion, and these are because of acute heart failure. You can go through your leisure time. They are divided further. This is in decompensated heart failure, acute hypertensive failure, and cardiogenic shock. I am not going in tremendous detail. This is advanced stage where person will have a recurrent hospitalization, severe exercise intolerance, heart failure wasting syndrome, cardiorenal syndrome, right heart failure, and inotropes dependence. The person will require continuously inotrope to maintain the cardiac output. And that is very peculiar in advanced, or we call it the end stage heart failure. And they invariably require an artificial support from outside. You will require inotropes, you will require CRT, or you will require ICD, etc. This is what we call the Framingham score, where major criteria, minor criteria for congestive heart failure. You can go through here at your leisure time. That in the major criteria, PND, JVP elevation, basal crackles, or we call RALS or crackles, cardiomegaly, hepatojugular reflux, and response to diuretics. These are given in a major criteria. While in minor criteria, ankle edema, nocturnal cough, exertional dyspnea, pleural effusion, hepatomegaly, tachycardia, they are included in minor criteria. So do follow this to identify congestive heart failure. This is congestive heart failure with normal ejection fraction, means in a diastolic heart failure you go for a major criteria and minor criteria. In a systolic heart failure it is very easy, where by and large we don't require these major or minor criteria. So characteristics: edema, JVP, hepatomegaly, hepatojugular reflux, ascites, and lung is normal, more in favor of straightforward in favor of right ventricular failure. While central cyanosis, orthopnea, PND, basal crepitations or basal crackles, JVP normal, no edema, no ascites, no hepatosplenomegaly, pure right ventricular failure, or we call acute pulmonary, and when both are combined together we call as a congestive heart failure. This is same thing showing you less than 40% ejection fraction we call as a reduced ejection fraction. The commonest cause 60% of the time ischemic, in 24% of the group non-ischemic, and in only 10% other causes like valvular heart disease, etc. So that particular groups. Here dilated cardiomyopathy, etc. will come. While in a preserved ejection fraction, that is diastolic, you will require lot of investigation to find out what is the cause. The most common is hypertension. So I end my lecture here. So I hope this understanding of heart failure will be very easy. We'll be going through how you approach to a heart failure and management of heart failure in next lecture.